All right, so this is probably the most important topic in this section because you're going to need it over and over again, probably for the rest of the semester. Also, I think it's always good to know this stuff because it's useful. It's good to understand how different kinds of what we call conflict aims match up with different kinds of conflict styles. And so what I've done is, if you look in your book, they actually spend some time talking about passive aggressive, and assertive. And then they start talking about avoiding, accommodating, competing, and compromising and collaborating. And so what I've done is I put them together so that you can see how these two concepts relate on this slide. So that's kind of what you're going to see here. And I apologize, this is going to be a little bit longer of a video. I try to keep everything at 10 minutes or less. And this is probably going to be a little bit longer. So, know when you've got time. As always, you can click the YouTube button, throw this on your phone, and just listen to me as you're cleaning your house or doing something else, because I think that you could probably capture most of this that way. So, disclaimer. All right, so let's start about these conflict styles. We got passive aggressive, and assertive. Okay, and this is a classic model. If you Google this, you're going to find it everywhere. And the only reason I'm making my own video is because I felt like none of them actually combined it with the coordinating resolution scale. So that's why that is. Passive. All right, now passive, and all of these aims, these four aims, are all about like, how do you communicate needs and wants in a conflict? So passive means your needs are more important than my needs. Now a lot of people go, oh, that's the kind thing. That's the good thing to do. That's being nice. But the problem is if our needs in a relationship are never met, then that can actually lead to problems down the road. Because if we feel dissatisfied in a relationship, or if we feel we're being used, a lot of times what that happens is that breeds resentment over time. So we actually have to be able to express our needs. So passive people who are always saying, your needs are more important than my needs, a lot of times what they're doing is they are hoping that the other person is saying, no, 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 your needs are more important than my needs. And so that can become a problem if both of those communicators are not using the same style. So passive is essentially, your needs are more important than my needs. And there's two kinds of argument styles in this. The first one is the avoidance style. Avoidance style basically means that anytime a conflict happens, you run the other way. You might say, oh, I don't want to talk about this, or this isn't important, let's not talk about this right now. And that's avoiding, right? And you've met people who, anytime you try to have an argument with them, they kind of head for the hills. That's avoiding. Okay. The other one is what a lot of people would call the pushover. So that avoiding is lose-lose, because both parties lose because the conflict is never addressed, and nobody's needs are met. Okay. In lose-win, that's accommodating. Accommodating is when you basically say, it's no big deal. You can do whatever you want. I have to admit, I do this a lot when it comes to choosing what to have for dinner, because most of the time I actually don't care, or I'm so tired, I don't even want to make the decision. So I'm like, you know what, whatever you want is fine. And if they say, oh, I want Jimmy John's, which I can't stand, sorry, Jimmy John's, I'll be like, that's cool. You guys have Jimmy John's. I will go make leftovers. That is off. And so none of these are inherently bad. But sometimes if you do them the same one all the time, like for example, if that was every night, I would probably get grumpy because it's like, no one ever picks what I want. Well, if I didn't say it, how do they know? Right? So that's passive. Passive is, your needs are more important than my needs. Okay. And whilst, again, sometimes that can be considered selfless, if that's what we do all the time, our needs are never met. And that's not good and not healthy in a relationship. Now, aggressive is the flip. So is passive aggressiveness, which is hard to understand, which we'll talk about in a sec. Aggressive is, my needs are more important than your needs. Okay. This is what a lot of people would consider being selfish. They're going to put themselves first. Okay. Now, sometimes being aggressive is important. For example, if, somebody is harassing you, or if someone is, attacking you in a way that is not okay. Sometimes being aggressive is what you need to do, right? If that person is absolutely wrong, then aggressiveness might be important, just like passiveness might be important in some cases. So aggressive is, I win, you lose, or competing style. All right. And again, if let's say somebody is cheating, all right, let's say I'm a teacher and and they're cheating. I have to say, you can't do that. That's wrong. That's dishonest. Okay. Well, that person isn't going to win. They're going to lose. That's competing style. But in the example I just stated, when you have power over somebody and you're going to end up using win-lose conflict, you have to realize that that is often going to take a toll on the relationship, and you're going to have to do some repair later on. Okay. And if you can do assertiveness with collaboration, that's always going to be better. And as a matter of fact, we're now starting to see this idea of restorative justice in schools that actually deal with cheating and deal with negative behavior in a more cooperative manner. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, so let's talk about aggressive and passive aggressive. Now, normally aggressiveness is negative. So is passive aggressive. And I think here's the thing. Most of us know that aggression in general isn't the best way to approach conflict in relationship, right? We know that's not okay. So what we do is we do this weird passive aggressive thing where we're still stating that our needs are more important, but we're trying to mask it in a passive shell. So for example, if someone says, actually, this is something I did, and I know not to do this anymore. I made this mistake early in my marriage. My husband wanted to go run a race on my birthday. And first of all, my birthday is in January. So I don't know why he wanted to go run a race in January, but that's his thing. And I caught myself because I said, I guess it's fine. It's no big deal. It's not like it's my birthday, but that's not a huge deal. And it was a big deal. And it was a big deal just because, right? He'd be gone all day. And it was really funny as I checked myself and I said, you know what? That's wrong. I know that you want to run this race, but it is my birthday. And I would so it would make me sad if you were gone all day. And so I checked myself and I moved us to a more assertive style, and we ended up compromising, and it was awesome. But that's passive aggressive. Passive aggressive is where you're like, oh no, it's fine. Or where you might say, well, that's your fault, or something like that. Anytime somebody's making themselves the victim, that is often a passive aggressive thing, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to convince you that you were bad or you were wrong and that you need to make amends to them. So it's the same kind of, my needs are more important than your needs, but it's in a different kind of package. So that's something to pay attention to. When you have somebody who's passive, it's always good to say, if they go, oh no, this doesn't matter, it's always good to say, wait a second, I want to make sure that we're both happy here. What would make you happy, or what would make you feel good, or something like that. Or if it's a work thing, I want to make sure both of our department's needs are met. Okay. In an aggressive thing, and somebody's trying to win, I'm a big fan of almost doing kind of like a judo move and moving out to the side and saying, I acknowledge that this is really important to you. How can we make it work so that we're both where we need to be? So a lot of times knowing the kind of style can help you figure out how to get to the best kind of solution. And that's honestly being assertive. Assertive is where you acknowledge that both people's needs are important, okay? That both people's needs, or both departments' needs, or both whatever are key, is really going to make things work out well, all right? Now, there are two kinds of resolution when it comes to being assertive. The first one is partial lose-lose, which is compromise, which I think everybody knows, all right? I think most people know compromise. This is where neither person gets exactly what they want, and it's kind of like, okay, well, we'll do this. Like, so, compromise might be, I wanted to go to Mexican and you wanted to go to Chinese, so let's just cook something at home. Sometimes that's compromise, and that's not good. But sometimes compromise might also be, hey, you want to go run a race on your birthday? Okay, that's cool. Can you make sure that you're home by this time so that we also get to go out? So that would also be compromise. He doesn't get to stay overnight, and so has to make a long drive, but then also I don't get him all day or something like that. I actually don't remember how we resolved that conflict, but we're still married and happy, so I'm assuming it went well. The one that you want to do the most is what we call collaboration or win-win. And I will tell you that win-win is the hardest kind of conflict resolution. It takes the most time, but it's really, really useful. So the way that you get to that win-win, and again, lots of extra work. The first thing is, who owns that problem? Well, technically both of you do, right? If you have something you want and somebody else has something they want, and the conflict exists, neither person is going to be more right or more wrong than the other. It's just they have competing aims, okay? Also, it's always good to say, here is what's going on. Here is how that's affecting me. And a lot of people go, because a lot of people say, here's how that makes me feel. And a lot of, people don't like those kind of statements. So instead, here is how that's affecting me. It feels a little bit less weird. And then here's what's going to happen if this behavior continues, or here are the potential consequences of that behavior. And this is going to get us into the clear message format in the next slide. So I'm not going to go too much into that piece. But that's really important, is to actually be upfront with, here is why this is so upsetting to me, or here is why this is affecting me. Because then it helps people take perspective and practice empathy, even if it's not something that comes naturally to them. Also, no matter what you think in the back of your head, don't blame or accuse the other person. Again, that's going to trigger defensiveness. And as soon as you trigger defensiveness in a conflict, the conversation's over. You're not going to make any headway. Okay? Try to find a place where you've got common ground. I'm a big fan of pulling up alongside people and trying to get us to see how both of our needs can be met. So, for example, let's say I have a student who cheated on a test. I know I'm taking that from before. What I might do is I might say, you cheated, that's in violation of our honor code, and that makes it difficult for other people to try as hard. Like, I might actually give them the consequences of cheating and why that's a big deal. But then I'll say, why did you cheat? And a lot of times people go, and I'll go, no, really. When you made that decision, what happened? And a lot of times I'll get somebody saying something to the effect of, I ran really, really late, and because I had to work, and then it was the last minute, and I figured it was better to give it a shot and just throw something up there that I was able to find online than not turn it in at all. Okay? And so sometimes what I'll do is I'll say, okay, I understand that stress. I've been there. I was a working college student, and I have been hit by the deadline stick a couple of times, and I understand why you did that. But the next time this happens, instead of doing this, reach out to me and see if we could come up with something. Always try to raise that flag of help before it's due. Because because let's say you turn in a crappy paper, you get 10, 15, 25, 30 points versus getting 0 points and getting written up and maybe getting sent up the line to a disciplinary hearing. You've got to weigh that. And so trying to find that common ground, and sometimes realizing that somebody's behavior isn't necessarily meant to hurt you specifically. I think that's why a lot of people, like cheating, they take it very personally. You've got to sit there and realize that most times people aren't thinking about other people's feelings when they act. And especially when they do stuff that's not necessarily nice. They're thinking about their needs, and that happens. And we all have needs, and we all have to have those needs satisfied in some way, shape, or form. But how we do it is in relationship to other people is something that takes time to learn. Okay. And then I'm a big fan of proposing solutions that show that you took the other person's desires or thoughts into account. So, for example, normally when I catch somebody cheating in my class, I'm gonna smack them with the stick. I'm gonna smack them with the 0 stick. But I might say, okay, I'm not gonna kick you out of my class because it's the first time it's happened. Next time, this is what I want you to do. And then kind of work with that person. Interpersonally, I've done this with, friends and family and things like that, where I'll say, hey, this isn't, and this is hard for me because I'm a people pleaser. There was a time when my mom wanted me to go to a trivia night and bring my baby. At the time, Fia was a baby. And it was so hard because it made her so mad at me. But I actually said, Mama, I really can't have my kiddo up that late. I know you want me to go. I really can't. What if I did this? And what I did is I made some jewelry to donate to their silent auction instead. So I wanted to show that I still cared about her fundraising event, but that I needed to keep my own needs in mind and not like keep the kiddo up super, super late and then mess up my ability to like go to work the next day and all that stuff. So sometimes it's really important. And honestly, that didn't go as well as I would like, but at least you know what it did is it made it better the next time. And so sometimes that's what conflict resolution is all about. It's uncomfortable, it's not fun, but if you do it right, it prevents other conflict down the road. And that's what makes it worthwhile, and that's what makes it valuable. All right, so I know that's a longer video. I hope that's helpful. Make sure you know these styles because you're going to need them in the last case study for the final exam. All right, see you soon.